Welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I'm dedicated to helping you take control of your life. Together, we'll explore practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Making small changes is possible and can lead to big results. Are you ready? Let's go do this. Hey, Shawn, welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I'm so glad that we are having this opportunity to have a conversation. So before I dive in, why don't you take a couple minutes, just tell everybody who they're listening to, and we will go from there.
Yeah, of course. So my name's Shawn Rivers, and like yourself, I'm a podcaster. I don't necessarily think of myself as a podcaster most of the time, but I do that really just for fun. That's the biggest thing for me. I love networking with people, and it's an hour of mentorship at the same time. Alongside that, I do nutrition coaching, primarily focusing on there's so many different diets and foods and all these different ways that everyone's trying to get healthy. There's so much information. We're all self-sabotaging ourselves. How can we change our daily habits? How can we actually get healthy? How can we actually lose body fat and simplify that process for people? That's what I do now. A little bit, just the briefest synopsis that I can make for myself. I'll give you a little bit just about how we got into the nutrition space. So between my junior and senior year of high school, I dropped about 25 pounds that summer. That's what kickstarted me into the health and nutrition space, my own personal journey. One of the topics I love to talk about is building trust within yourself, which we've already chatted about briefly. When I was 19, I was wrongly accused of a DUI. That is something that completely spiraled my life and why it's such a passionate topic for myself. So, those are the two biggest life changing moments that have shaped who I am today, what I like to talk about, and who I like to help.
Let's go to the DUI first. And you said it started a downward spiral for you. What did that look like? And then how did you turn your downward spiral into an upward spiral?
Mhm. The toughest part for me was that I didn't actually do anything wrong because when I was 19, I took a left on a right only. I had a little bit of marijuana in the car. A police officer pulled me over. He accused me of smoking and driving, which I was not. I was just leaving work. And then I was pretty much handcuffed from there. I can stay on my right leg on one foot for about 60 seconds, and on my left, I can only get 18. So that was the turning point. It made me really feel like I could not trust myself. I could not trust others. I had no trust for anyone anymore because I was like, why is this happening to me? We have all heard the quote, I hope, life is happening for you, not to you.
Mhm.
I really felt like life was happening to me. Like I could not
Mm.
figure out why life was happening for me. And when I say spiral, that's when it became I started drinking excessively, partying a little bit more, bad habit, didn't really take care of myself anymore. And in order to get out of that, I wish that there was one big epiphany moment that I could tell you about, but there's just not. It never came for me. I looked for it for a long time.
Life is just a process, you have to
Yeah.
go through that journey and you have to go down, but there's no real turning point. I'm glad you said that because sometimes when you listen to people's stories, they're like, I had this day, I can tell you on this day, this happened, this turned my life around. And then there's other people and their stories are like, I'm not quite sure. It was just gradual. And one day I woke up and poof, I was here. I'm glad you said that because those paths are correct. There's no
Mhm.
such thing as the right way or wrong way to get from where you need to be from point A to point B when you grow. So there was something you said in there about after that event happened, you lost trust in yourself and you lost trust in people.
Mhm.
What practically did that look like for you to lose trust in yourself? And then how did you build that up and regain that over time?
Yeah. So for me, what it looked like was I felt like I couldn't do anything. It didn't matter if I went to the gym, it didn't matter if I ate really healthy. No matter what I did, I felt like it wasn't going to work out. That's how
Mm.
I lost that trust within myself. It doesn't matter if I do all the right things, it's not going to work out regardless. That's really a process that I started to take myself to. And what I take people through now is I do the smallest minimal steps. So for me, back then, it was taking a shower in the morning. I didn't want to get up and get out of bed. So at least let me just go and take a shower. If I can accomplish this one little thing, then I can do another little thing. Over time, that trust starts to build again. When you lose trust in yourself, it's like if me and you were going to the gym tomorrow and I said, "Hey, Sue, I'm going to pick you up at 6 a.m." and I don't do it, you start to lose a little bit of trust in me. That's what happens within ourselves. We tell ourselves that we're going to do one thing and then we don't do it. And then that's how we lose trust within ourselves.
Why is it important for people to trust themselves? I can see
Mhm.
how they can lose trust. Like you said, you're going to do something and then you don't do it, especially if you say you're going to pick me up into the gym and then you don't show up. I was counting on you, but sometimes it's harder for us to establish trust in ourselves if it's just something where we're counting on ourselves to do. Does that make sense? Like
Mhm.
getting up and taking a shower. Why is it important for people to trust themselves first?
I view this as the same reason that you put the mask on if a airplane was going down before you put it on someone else. You have to save yourself. A lot of what I found in life now is, and it's not like I'm saying I'm super wise or anything. I'm only 28.
But you have
Regardless.
experience.
Yeah.
I take out the age because I've come across very wise souls at 20 and very immature souls at 68. I think age is just bullshit.
Where I'm going with this is I've had to realize for myself that I need to be the hero in my own story. I can have a guide. And it's the same thing with helping people now. For a long time, I wanted to be their hero. At the end of the day, I can't do any work for anyone. I can give people different tools and I
Mhm.
help them as much as I can, but I can't be the hero in your story. I have to be your guide. When we look at why it's so important to build trust within ourselves first, is if we had some type of relationship, coaching relationship, friendship, XYZ, if I didn't trust myself, then no matter what you did for me, it wouldn't really matter. If I didn't do it, it's not going to matter.
Mhm. Do you come across clients that don't trust themselves first, but you can see it that you have that belief in them? What does that do, like, when you impart that onto them? What's the outcome for them?
I think it depends on the person
Mm,
because you know
true.
what? I think majority of people trust someone else outside of themselves more than they trust themselves. Not with huge decisions necessarily, because I think that they deep down know I need to break up with this person or I need to move out of this state. You just know, right? But in terms of like, hey, someone comes to me, they're trying to lose weight, they keep self sabotaging all these things. I think it's easy to see the potential in everyone, right? Because I'm no different than anyone else. You're not really that different than anyone else in terms of your skills and capabilities. You just work more, and that's it.
Mhm.
You just continue to mold yourself. When I look at someone that doesn't necessarily trust themselves, I don't
Yeah,
go
yeah,
and
yeah,
tell
yeah.
people, you don't
Yeah,
trust
you
yourself.
don't trust yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, even just to say that, it's hard to conceptualize for
Hmm.
some people. As we're having this conversation, and why I'm asking the questions to draw it out is because if you say to me, "Hey, so you just don't trust yourself," I'm gonna be like, Well, yeah, but what do you mean if
Yeah.
I don't trust myself?" I think moving from the theoretical to the practical, where people get tripped up, they don't understand that, wait a minute, yeah, I don't trust myself. How do I not trust myself? What am I doing to sabotage the trust in myself? What are some ways that you see people sabotaging when it comes to building trust within themselves? We'll state the obvious.
Mm.
They say they're going to do something and they don't do it. Are there any other ones that are more subtle than just the obvious one of you say you're going to do it and don't do it?
So, a bigger way to conceptualize this for people that's going to help them understand what's actually happening,
Okay.
right? The biggest thing is we're saying we're going to do something and not doing it. With that, we then have guilt and shame. We put ourselves into an energy and we beat ourselves up. And that's what continues that self sabotaging pattern.
No.
It's less about, okay, it's this exact thing. It's when we're looking at not keeping a promise to ourselves or not doing something that we said we were going to do, It's those feelings of guilt and shame that come afterwards, and then beating ourselves up. And that's what continues that pattern. Even if you had the worst day ever yesterday, you can start to celebrate some type of small win. Like you get up this morning and go outside for 1 minute. It may not seem like a lengthy amount of time, but if you can take the smallest action and celebrate that win, you can put yourself into a much better energy. Over time, that trust will be built again. It will become easier to keep your word to yourself. And that's when things are really going to change.
What I hear you saying and want to make sure I capture is that the small step is to find the win. Now, what came to my mind is that we are so programmed, or at least this is me personally, I'm so programmed to look for the big things. I got the raise or I did something really great. We tend to I default to the grandiose.
Hmm.
But you brought up just the fact that you went outside and got sun to celebrate that, to look for those little micro moments in our day that we just gloss over. I love that if you look for those micro win moments, those are ways that you're building trust in yourself because you're celebrating something that you did, no matter how small it is. I love it. I love it. I'm having one of those moments where it's like, wow, I just need to take a step back and not look for the big things, look for the small things. Like, yeah, I know that's the name of my podcast, but
Yeah.
we default to the
Mhm.
big stuff.
I found that, especially in terms of relating this to nutrition and diet and different lifestyle habits, what often happens is we have these big, lofty goals, which is awesome, right? But when we say that we're going to go to the gym 7 days a week, we're going to make sure that our diet is perfect. If we don't stick to that and make sure everything is perfect, then all of a sudden we start beating ourselves up. I said I was going to do this. This was really going to be the time. That's when that yo-yo type of
Yeah.
dieting lifestyle factors come into play. Creating the small wins, even if someone is eating McDonald's every single day. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that's what it is right now. Let's say you're eating zero fruits, zero vegetables, protein is minimal. Instead of trying to make the perfect plan for you, this is exactly what you need to eat. Okay, can you get, if you're eating zero fruits and vegetables right now, can you eat one fruit next week? And that's it. That's all we need you to do because you can accomplish it. And when you accomplish it, you'll feel good about yourself instead of trying to beat yourself up. Over time, that's what leads to that all or nothing approach. When we have these lengthy goals, then we self sabotage and don't get there and we just beat ourselves up. I tell people the smallest thing that you think is even stupid, like it would be silly that you would not be able to do this, like
Mm.
eating one fruit a week. It sounds silly and it doesn't feel like it's moving the needle, but then I tell people zoom out a little bit. One fruit a week, you ate four fruits a month, 48 pieces of fruit a year. And that was 48 more than you were doing last year. So when you can zoom out just a little bit, I think that's a very helpful practice. Once you've done it for a week or two, now it's starting to become a
Mhm.
habit. Now you can go and start to increase it.
And then put something else in there. Do
Yeah.
you use methods like journaling or meditation or breath work or anything like that when you work with clients to help enhance their results?
I think there's a huge psychological factor and mindset in terms of dieting and lifestyle. I'm not going to facilitate breath work for someone. But can I tell them on YouTube, you can look up a 10-minute Wim Hof breathing exercise, right? In terms of nervous system regulation for meditation, journaling, and breath work, that is huge. If you're not regulating your nervous system, your body is constantly in this fight or flight state. And then that in turn leads to more poor decisions. So for me, I love meditation, journaling, and breath work. I love all of them.
Me
But
too.
what I start with is okay, we're going to do 5 minutes of mindfulness. If you're doing no meditation, no breath work right now, we're going to take 5 minutes once a week, twice a week, and work our way up to 6 or 7 days a week. You're going to sit there without your phone, and that's it. That is a really great practice for myself and my clients to let their thoughts settle
Yeah.
and let all of the stimulation relax for a second.
Get rid of the
So
noise.
so it's
Yeah.
not necessarily that I'm like, "Hey, you need to meditate," but depending on what someone is struggling with, if they need to go deeper even just with like, "Hey, why are you doing this?" Okay, just journal it. You wanna send it to me? Awesome. You don't? Awesome. It makes no difference to me. I love all of those practices in terms of why they work, besides just the blanket statement of mindfulness and helping to regulate your nervous system and emotional state. It works.
Yeah, it sounds like you meet people right where they are. You mentioned that mindfulness is a buzzword for you. You wanna elaborate on that? I'm curious.
Well, I think
It's
like
stuck in the mind.
yeah, like how I've grown up is with social media. Like that's just how I've grown up at this point. And so when I look at mindset, so many people talk about mindset, but it's hard for us to even come up with a true definition for it. If I ask someone, what is mindset? I'll help you change your mindset. Okay, well, what is mindset?
I was just gonna
Yeah,
ask, what's your definition of
yeah.
mindset, or how do you view that? If
It
somebody were to
was
ask you.
Mark England gave me the best definition I've heard, which is how you think about your thinking. I think that's very helpful in terms of building self awareness. And I think self awareness is what mindset really is. Why do I do the things that I do? And how can I actually be the person that I want to be? A blend of all of those things is, I think, your mindset. I wish I had one easy blanket definition, but I don't.
That's okay. The word mindset evokes different responses from people. I mean, it's just one of those words that do that. Imposter syndrome,
Mm,
it means different things for different people depending on what they're thinking about it. You mentioned in the beginning that you like to talk about weight loss and helping
mhm,
people that way and self sabotage. So,
mhm,
what are the ways that, or what do you see when people come to you as far as self sabotaging goes in that
mm.
capacity?
They What happens is they don't have some type of destination, or they don't have what they actually want their body to look like. They don't have what they actually want their body to feel like. I think that's the biggest thing in terms of how we self sabotage when it comes to nutrition and how your body feels, how your body looks. A lot of people come to me and say, I don't know what I want, but I know I don't want this. And I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, great. If we don't have some type of destination, then it's going to be hard to get there, hard to take actionable steps. When you can look at who you want to become, that is a much greater question to answer than what don't you want.
Hmm. Okay.
So I think that's what happens when we look at self sabotage. People don't really know what they want. They just know that what they're doing is not working. They do a little bit of something to
Yeah.
change, but it doesn't get them because it's not aligned with who they actually want to be.
Yeah.
They just know that they don't want what they have.
Why do you think it's so hard for people to come up with a clear destination of where they want to go? Do you think, is it because they don't know who they really are? Or
I think
oh,
no one's asked them before. I think a lot of people right now are just going through life and it's fine. It's not that bad. I think that's the biggest way to describe a majority of people right now. Not that bad. I don't want to go on some crazy rant about it. I think just not that bad is this standard in us in our world right now. You
yeah.
go up, you ask someone, "How are you?" Not bad. And that's the
Yeah, it's
majority of
mediocrity for a number of people
yeah.
rather than striving for excellence over mediocrity.
I don't think that everyone has to be excellent and have a six pack or things like that. And just like when you were asking about, okay, is it that people don't know who they are? I think that's a huge component to it, right? But no one's taking the time to even ask themselves that question. People aren't asking themselves the deeper questions of who really am I? Who do I want to be when their check engine light is on and they're not even sure if they're going to make it to work. We have
Yeah.
a big component of scarcity, especially around financials. And that's what seems to come first for most people.
I wonder why they're not asking, like, why are people not asking themselves these questions? Is it just that they're not quieting themselves down enough or all
I
the
think
input?
that's
What are your thoughts?
I think both of those are definitely the two biggest things. We're free thinkers, right? No one's spending time in nature. No one's spending time by themselves. Every person on the street walking around has headphones in. You're never giving your mind a break besides when you sleep, right? And I think that's the biggest thing is that no one is sitting outside. No one is getting sunlight. Even though this is a great conversation, if you're having conversations with people all day long and you never give yourself a break to think, then you don't have time to ask yourself who you are. I'm
Good
not saying
point.
I have it all figured out. I don't know exactly who I am, but I can sit with myself for 15 minutes and not get agitated.
You don't
I
have to
don't
pick
have
up the
to.
phone, you don't have to look at Facebook, you don't have to go to Twitter or X. You don't
Yep.
have to go to any of those places. I had a podcast interview with my producer, Mark,
Mhm,
and he said the same thing we're talking about, and he's like, "Just shut the F up 10 minutes a day." He's
mhm,
like, "It'll change your life. Just sit there for 10 minutes with yourself with nothing on." He said, "If you really wanna accelerate, do it twice a day, once in the morning, once before you go to bed, and just sit with yourself." I have to wonder if people are afraid to sit with themselves because they don't know what they're gonna find when they
mm,
do that. It's almost like what you mentioned before. I wanna actually come back to this. You said that you lived life where you believed things were happening to you and not for you. At some point, you went from realizing life wasn't happening to you anymore, that life's happening for you. What was that like when you just
I wish there was some big epiphany moment. It was more about just making a decision. That's it. Belief is just whatever you decide. When you decide and commit, that's how your life changes. You simply decide and commit. I wish there was some secret sauce, but really all it is deciding and committing. It wasn't over this 1 day period where I was just like, I'm going to decide to do this. It was instead of going and drinking on my way to work at 10:30 in the morning, I'm just not going to do that today. And that was the next day. I can't even tell you if it was consecutive days to start. It was, you know what? Today, regardless of how I feel, this is what I'm going to do. A couple days go by, maybe I go back into self-sabotaging patterns. Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to do another day. And then I'm going to
just
do
one
another
day.
little thing. Just one day.
Mhm. You just gave the secret sauce. It's decide and commit. That's
Mhm.
it. It can be that simple. Frame
Yeah.
shifting can't you can get into alignment. You can frame shift instantaneously.
Mhm.
It's just we put so many blockers, conditions, and what ifs in place. That alone is paralyzing.
Mhm.
But I love that decide, commit. And what I love about your story is there's a series of small steps. That's all it is. Committing that day, deciding, commit, and then I I hear in your story a lot of grace too. Like you just said, if I decide not to drink this morning, great. Yeah.
One of the biggest things that's been helpful for me that I didn't realize at the time was it's progress over perfection. We want to have perfection. We want to make sure that we don't ever drink. We want to make sure that we eat all the healthy foods and we're committed to this process. We decided. But the reality is you'll get when you can just look back on how far you've come as opposed to beating yourself up over okay, I ate one Pop Tart today. Who cares? Then you can say, all right, you know what? I was drinking every single day 2 years ago and eating terribly. Now, there's 6 days this week that I ate really, really well. I followed all my calories and ate quality food. And then one day I ate more than I expected to. We forget how far we've come and just try to look at that future destination. I think you just need to be able to look at both.
I love that progress over perfection. I really like that. And I like the Pop Tart analogy because that's happened to me. I'll
Yeah.
go through seasons where I'm like, I'm not going to eat any gluten at all. So I tell myself, I'm not going to eat gluten.
Mhm.
I can go for weeks and not have any gluten, but then there's that one day I'm at a special event and there's one piece of something there that I want to eat that I know is not gluten free. So when I
Hmm.
tell myself that I'm not going to eat anything, then I almost set myself up for failure.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering, if a reframe and saying, "Okay, I'm going to be gluten-free 95% of the time," and give myself that, because I know that one thing that's going to happen once in a month is okay.
Hmm.
That progress over perfection. My question is, what are your thoughts on how people can restructure their words to set themselves up in the way that they do have those small wins, that they're not self-sabotaging themselves?
Yeah. It's a couple of different things. One, when you're looking at words in general, getting rid of the words that are indecisive. You've learned this from Mark and Austin, the should detox, all of the maybes and perhaps, just being a little bit more binary. You're either going to do this or you're not. In terms of helping shift that mindset and perspective, even with your example, for some people, we make things too restrictive. And
Mm,
when we tell ourselves we can't have something, we may be able to go for weeks on end. But then because we've been so restrictive, it's this big crazy binge because you feel like you'll never be able to have it again. All
mm,
right. It depends on who you are and where you're at. For some people, that works. For others, it doesn't. Becoming more self aware, when I restrict, do I go and binge on something? If I told myself, I don't watch TV anymore, and then all of a sudden this new show comes out and you watch all 4 seasons in a 2 day period, versus would it be healthier to watch an episode every other day? There's no right or wrong answer. But I think that what happens for the majority of people is that they restrict something too much, which makes them want it more. And in turn, once they finally get it, they feel like they're never going to be able to have it again. And then they try to get as much as they can in. I don't know if that answered your question in
yeah,
terms of
no.
a play on words, but I think that's a healthy perspective shift to have in looking at restricting something instead of fitting this into your lifestyle.
It really does come back to the words and what we tell ourselves. You mentioned before about those soft words. I call
Mhm.
them soft words like should, could, sorta, kind, maybe, try. When
Yep.
you said try, I thought of the saying that Yoda says, do or do not, there is no try.
Yeah.
When you think about it, you're either doing that thing or you're not doing that thing.
Mhm.
Trying is just inaction. You didn't do that thing. I'm
Yep.
not trying it. I just didn't do that thing. We talked before and you mentioned inner peace, and
Mhm.
that's really important for you. Why is it important, and how do you cultivate inner peace in your life?
I wish that I could give a blanket statement for everyone that's listening, but of course, this is specifically for me.
Your small
Peace.
step might help somebody else. I think we have to realize that I
Oh,
hear
no, no.
you on that it's your specific situation, and
Mhm.
everybody has a specific situation. But if we enter and listen with the perspective that even though that's from their perspective, there is the possibility of some nugget in there that's going to resonate with me. So as
Yeah.
you share your perspective with inner peace, there's might be somebody out there listening saying, "You know what? Yeah, I struggle with inner peace. How does Shawn do it?"
For me, what it comes down to is I've defined who I want to be. So now, regardless of the situation, regardless of all of these external things, whether I have this, whether I don't have this, as long as I show up how I want to show up, that's all that matters. And that's what inner peace is to me. Regardless of the external world, this is what I do. This is who I am. This is how I show up. So it doesn't matter what's going on around me. And I think when I can continue to show up regardless of how I feel, that's more inner peace for me.
What does showing up look like for Shawn?
Keeping my word to myself. If I say I'm going to do something, to just do it. And that's been a big theme of the podcast today, right? Doing things that you say that you're going to do. For me, showing up is making sure that I'm not necessarily being of service to others, but doing something in the best interest for myself and the other person. So for this conversation, making sure that I say things I know and have experienced, not just making up random things, but then also for you, making sure that I came prepared today and gave this conversation my all because you're giving me an hour of your time. Showing up for me is just making sure that I'm doing something for the best interest of myself and the best interest of you. Depending on the situation, I can tailor it between the two.
Thanks for your definition of showing up. We hear it often. Just show up for that thing you're showing up for. And you know what? I have to wonder if what showing up looks like is different for different situations. If you're an athlete, you got to show up in one capacity versus if we're having a podcast and you show up a little bit differently. But
Mhm,
I really sense like your core fundamental is trusting yourself and then doing what you say you're going to do.
mhm,
So, what's one thing that you thought would be hard about your self-development journey and wasn't? And then flip it. What did you think was gonna be easy and then wound up being more challenging?
mm. The thing that I thought was gonna be hard was honestly, from the get-go, the physical aspect of it. Getting into the gym, changing my body, because I think that that's a huge part of personal development that a lot of us don't talk about or think about. We just think personal development, how many books do I have to read? Or at least that's what comes to my mind. And
Yeah.
so I really thought that that was going to be difficult, but for me, I fell in love with it. It's not like everyone just automatically falls in love with the gym. I understand that that's not it. Some people hate it, and they'll always hate it. And I'm not saying that you need to go to the gym. I'm saying you just need to become healthy, So whether it's walking, whether you're doing a yoga class, there's so many different modalities. So I did think that was going to be difficult for me, but it ended up not. It's very simple and I like to keep it simple. And now I really love it. Something that I thought was going to be easy, but it was difficult was getting clients. I thought, okay, I'm going to launch a business and then I'm going to make an Instagram and a Facebook post and people will just flock to me. I thought it was going to be so easy, right? And that's not how it is. It's not how it is at all.
I talk to a lot of coaches. I hear the same thing. They're like, I thought the people would just come to me like Field of Dreams." Kind of dating
Yeah.
myself, but there was that movie out there,
Yep.
if you build it, they will come, and they
Yep.
all came out of the cornfield.
Yep.
It doesn't always work that way. At least that's the common thing that I have. I haven't built a coaching business yet.
Mhm.
I can't speak from that, but that is what I hear a lot of coaches say when I talk to them.
Yeah.
That people would just materialize and then they don't.
We think that we are going to take one personal development course or we're going to have this big shift in something just because I've done it and I've had a bunch of different perspective shifts and a big epiphany moment that all of a sudden now I can just share it with the world and everyone will resonate with it. And then everyone will want this as well because I feel different. Since I feel different, I want to make sure that everyone else feels different. But not everyone is paying attention to you. I don't think people really care.
We were talking about getting clients and the challenge with them. They don't care.
So
And then
I don't think they really care when you feel different. People, you just don't have the trust with people yet.
right.
That's what I think a big part of it is.
Do you think it has something to do with the way people relate to your story? You have something that they want
Mhm,
and they're gonna come to you for that. That's what happened with my coach. I told you before, Austin
mhm,
is my coach. He's been my coach for 10
mhm.
months now. When I first had a conversation with him, I realized, wait a minute, this guy has something that I want. My question to him was, can you help me get from where I am to give people some
Yeah,
perspective?
it's an up and down
Mm,
journey. And I don't try to front and tell people, hey, I'm some crazy six-figure coach right now. For me, I started as a personal trainer in person. I had anywhere between 20 and 30 clients from one gym to the next. This was transitioning through the 2020 era. And so that was very up and down, lost a lot of clients. Then I was like, I need to do this online. After 2020, I was still working in person. I was working at different restaurants to make ends meet. And then I had zero clients for like a year or two. I was like, I'm posting on social media every day. Like, what am I doing wrong? And that's all we think it is. But there's so many different ways to attract clients as well. And so For me, this journey has been 5 or 6 years now of just up and down, figuring out what I even offer. I was doing life coaching and giving that away for free to people, seeing if I could get them different results without even saying, this is the result that you're going to get. I was like, okay, I don't know if this is for me. It wasn't until about 6 to 8 months ago when I was like, what am I good at? What have I already done? I've already had my own physical transformation. I've already gotten many other people physical transformations. Let me go a little bit deeper into here. And now let me just specifically do this instead of trying to be this person that can
Everything
do
else.
everything and heal you and make your life
Yeah.
100 times better and make it so that you have the best relationship. Let me just focus on the physical transformation. Let me just help you lose body fat. But along with that, there's other components to it, right? I'm a health and nutrition coach, and now I've built a client base around specifically that for the past 6 to 8 months. We still do the meditation, we still do the journaling, we're still implementing daily habits, but I'm not saying I'm a health, meditation, journal expert.
Right.
Let's do the physical transformation. And then when we look under the hood a little bit and why you're self sabotaging, then we can go and
And
change a
you
couple.
find in your journey, what I see is somebody who's on an upward spiral. We think growth happens linearly in a straight line and you never go back. In your story, where you said, maybe I'll try this life coaching, maybe I'll do that. It's kind of like it's not a setback, but you have to go back a little bit. Sometimes you have to go on that downward spiral in order to go back up again to figure out what it is. And I'm glad you shared your journey because I'm sure there's people listening that are going, wow, okay, it's not upward. I did have a little bit
Mhm,
of a setback, but there's wins in those setbacks too.
mhm,
I think what's really important to focus on is that a setback isn't a failure. It's just a
mm-mm,
learning opportunity to point you in a better direction that you need to go in. I love that you shared that. Now you're a nutrition coach, or I'm
mhm.
sorry, you're nutrition. Now you're a body transformation coach, but you incorporate nutrition. You meet people where they are.
Yeah.
How does that
It's
feel to you when you explain it that way versus what you used to try to
mhm.
do?
It's much easier, right? Instead of just saying, "I'm a coach that will help make your life better in some aspect." People know what I do. They know whether it's for them or not, and it's much easier for me. I don't work with everyone. If you're in great shape, you don't have a desire to build muscle, you just love where you're at right now. We are not the fit,
Right.
right? To hear that and to relay back to you this up and down journey and how influential it's been, how much growth there's been. If I didn't go and test out life coaching and all of these different aspects, I wouldn't be able to take everything I learned during that period and incorporate it now. I don't have to sit with someone for an hour and ask all the difficult questions. Having a 15-minute Zoom conversation, it's easier for me to have that little perspective shift within that 15 minutes instead of going and spending an hour with someone. And
Mhm.
so now it's much easier to take all of the different tools that I've used. I'm glad that business didn't work. Now I can use them.
It seems like you're more in flow when you talk about what you do now versus what you used to do. There's a ease about it. There's a flow there, and to look for, I guess my encouragement to people listening would be to look for where you're in flow with what comes natural for you. If you're struggling to find where your place is, look for,
Yeah.
like you said, you mentioned it before, you looked at what you were good at, you looked at what you enjoyed, and
Mhm.
then tried to see where you could put all that together and form a coaching business, which is
Mhm.
actually thriving now more than what it did before. Now you're in
Mhm.
flow and you're vibrating at that higher frequency. You're now positive. Now you're attracting the people to you because you know what you can do to help them.
Mhm.
What's something that very few people agree with you on?
I would say, and it's controversial, but when we look at how much we love ourselves and how fulfilled we are, I do think that there is a direct correlation if we take care of ourselves from a physical aspect. Personally, the body positivity movement, for me, I'm not a fan of. I'm not on board with it. I think that all people are valuable. When we look at your body weight and how healthy you are and your blood pressure and your fasted blood glucose, if you're 100 pounds overweight, then yes, I love you. I think that you need to change. We are too accepting right now of great, you're 100 pounds overweight, you are beautiful. Sure, you're beautiful in your own special way, but it would be much healthier if you were 100 pounds less. The body positivity movement for me is controversial, but I'm trying to create the vision I have for nutrition, health, and body transformation. When I look at my 5 year, 10-year view of what to create, I want society to have a higher standard. Even for myself, though, I look at myself and I'm like, I'm overweight, where I'm 5'8", 190 pounds. I pretty much look like a normal looking person for the most part. As I continue to hold myself to a higher standard, be the walking embodiment of what I'm really selling, that 5 to 10 years down the road, now I can bring up everyone that's following, working with me. Let's have a
Mhm.
higher standard for everyone. The body positivity, being overweight, I'm just not a fan of it. I don't think it's healthy. I don't think that that's what we should be encouraging. Love everyone. Everyone is awesome, but
Mhm.
let's have some harder conversations and let's get people healthy as well.
Yeah, they don't understand. I used to be 30 pounds overweight
Mhm,
in my 20s
mhm.
and shed a lot of that. I'm nowhere near what I used to be. I'm actually normal, healthy body weight. What do you think is the driver behind people staying complacent if they're 100 pounds overweight? They're like, I love me. I'm this big, and that's what it is. I agree because I was that overweight person. I feel
Mhm,
healthier now. I dropped 10 pounds in the last couple of months and feel
mhm.
so much better. What do you think keeps people complacent
Yep.
where they're at?
I think that this is a great full circle moment. I think that people, what happens is that this complacency you're talking about, everything is fine for the most part. We have a great job where all of our bills are paid. We go out with our friends on the weekend. And then coming back to those questions of who am I? Who do I really want to be? We're not asking ourselves those questions. So if we're not asking ourselves those questions, we don't need to go and search for the answer. Because if we searched for the answer, then we would have to actually go and change. Avoiding those hard conversations is what keeps people complacent. Everything is fine for the most part. Is it what I actually want life to be? I've never actually defined what I want life to be. People don't ask themselves the right questions. This complacency is all they know keeps them there
Yeah.
because they've never even defined a different life. Once you can define a different life or see someone else do something different, then, oh my God, I didn't even know that was out there. We just get comfortable with where we're at. That's why I think people don't change.
I
I
think
think that's
that's
all
what it is, and they don't think, "Why bother changing? Because this is what it is, it's status quo." I
Mhm,
applaud you for going out there and spreading your message that you don't have to stay complacent. There's a better way you can feel out there, there's a better result out there, and anybody can do this. Sometimes we just need somebody to walk with us along the way.
mhm.
There's no shame in having somebody help us to get out of our own way. So,
Yeah.
Shawn, I've enjoyed our conversation. I like to ask my guests pretty much the
Mhm,
same 3 questions. What's a book or resource that's had a significant impact on you that you'd like to share?
mhm. I would say Outwitting the Devil was one of my favorite books. You don't have to agree with everything in the book, but in terms of what is evil in a sense and what is really like dragging me down, and
Mm.
then what is making it so that I'm living that higher standard, more in line with my higher self. There's a great differentiation between those two things. What's helping, what's hindering me, what's working, what's not. And then I think that book has really helped me make some lifestyle changes.
Outwitting the Devil, Napoleon Hill. I have not
Mhm.
read that one, but I've read Think and Grow Rich.
Read that too.
Excellent. What is one question or topic that you wish I would have asked about, and how would you have answered the question or expanded on the topic?
Mm. I think the best question to ask someone like myself is, what is the best diet? My answer to that is the one that you can stick to. So when you look at a diet, it's less about diet, more about lifestyle changes, because it's a lot of the lifestyle changes that got you there. They go hand in hand. The best diet or lifestyle change is, what are you actually going to be able to stick to? And what is putting you into some type of calorie deficit? You're eating less. What is it going to look like for you to eat a little more protein and micronutrients? So all those vitamins and minerals, a lot that you get from meat, fruits, vegetables. Those are the big three. And so when you can come up with something around those areas, I think that's the best diet that's going to work for someone.
Makes complete sense. As we close, what is one small step that someone can do today that's going to help them change their tomorrow?
I love that this is going to be different for everyone. Pick something that you know you can do and do that today. If you're listening to this podcast and you say, I've never done meditation or breath work or mindfulness, after I listen to this, I'm going to sit here without my phone, without my computer, without my television for 1 minute. And that 1 minute, at least you did it. So whatever you're going to do, just make it so easy that you know that you can do it, regardless of the action step that you're going to take. Make it so easy that you know you're going to be able to do it.
Make those micro wins, small steps to micro wins. Shawn, thank you for the gift of your time. How can people find you?
Yes, you can find me everywhere at Growth by Shawn. And I also have my own podcast, the Growth by Shawn podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for the
Yeah.
gift of your time. This has been amazing. Lots of information in here, Shawn. I appreciate you. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I value your time with me, and I seek to make every moment count. In order to make lasting change in your life, listening is usually not enough. So I want to ask you, what practical steps are you going to put into action today as a result of listening to this podcast? Remember, any step, any action, no matter how small, starts your journey to a big win. And if you're not sure where to get started, reach out to me and let's have a conversation. Until next time, love yourself, then love others. Peace.